What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to Days of Future Present, the next crossover that we are going to talk about. Now, today's video, we're going to jump back over to X-Factor, and we are going to begin our coverage over Judgement War. Man, this storyline is pretty long, but also pretty interesting as well. Now, this came a couple books after X-Men Inferno, the previous crossover that we had talked about. But now we're going to jump into Judgement War, the next big story arc for X-Factor alone. Now, when it comes to X-Factor, they are going to be teleported across the universe, and they are going to deal with another world's problem, but at the same time, they're also going to deal with the Celestials as well. And that makes things even more interesting. Now, the last time we had actually talked about X-Factor was back when our heroes had arrived back home to their base, except their base was being taken away to somewhere else, and we had no idea where they were going to. Let me explain. So their home base is better known as the ship. Now, the ship is actually being run by an AI system. Now, originally the ship was being controlled by Apocalypse, but our heroes were able to free the ship from Apocalypse, and they have been using it as their home base. Now, the problem was no one knows the actual origin of the ship, but this story arc right here is going to give us pieces of the origin of the ship. But either way, the last time we saw our heroes, the ship was being pulled away into space and most likely across the universe. Now, when it comes to X-Factor, they're on the ship and they're kind of wondering where in the world the ship is going. But again, the ship is not in control. Unfortunately, it's being forced to travel across the universe. Now, I want to focus on Jean Grey here. You see, when it comes to our heroes, when the ship began to travel across the universe, our heroes were on top of the ship. And so the ship had to create a bubble that would allow our heroes to breathe and survive while traveling across the universe. Now, when it comes to Jean Grey, as soon as our heroes had arrived in space, some kind of sensation took over her mind and body, where she wanted to be out in space, to fly in the stars or with the stars. And so because of that, she breaks the bubble to go out in space. Now, the rest of the team, they know that she cannot survive out there, and they were able to bring her back in. But the question is, why did she do that for? And it all goes back to what happened in Inferno. Now, guys, we had learned back in Inferno in previous videos that Jean Grey was never the Phoenix. You see, back in the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix saga, we had believed it was Jean Grey who had became the Phoenix, but in reality, it was the Phoenix pretending to be Jean Grey while Jean Grey was healing at the bottom of Jamaican Bay. Now, when it came to Inferno, when she had absorbed the mind of Madeline Pryor, she also absorbed all the different memories of when the Phoenix was pretending to be her. And so at this moment and right now, when it comes to Jean Grey's mind, she's battling for control with herself, Madeline, and also the Phoenix. And so when it came to her now having those memories inside her head of the Phoenix pretending to be her, she felt like the Phoenix for a brief moment and wanted to be out in space to fly with the stars. And it kind of shows that from this point on, she might be battling between Madeline Pryor and also the Phoenix personas. But getting back to our heroes as they are traveling across the universe, you did have our heroes being able to enter hyperspace. Now, with hyperspace, they are able to travel across the universe very fast, to the point where now they're on the other side of the universe. Now, when they do arrive, they find this random planet, except this planet is currently going through a lot, especially in the war category. But when our heroes arrive in the orbit of this planet, they find a massive ship that's way bigger than the moon that's attached to the planet. And so right now they're wondering what in the world is going on with that ship right there. is to shift the reason why our ship was brought over to this part of the universe. But then out of nowhere, our heroes are confronted by a celestial. Now for X Factor, this is kind of new to them. They really never had the chance to actually experience a celestial. And so for them, they're wondering, what in the world is this being right now just floating in space right in front of them? Is this the reason why their ship had traveled across the universe? Now, while you have our heroes wondering what in the world is going on, they are then teleported down to the planet that they had just arrived at. Now, here's the thing about this planet. You see, on this planet, there are two groups who are currently at war with one another, the Chosen and also the Rejects. Now, when it comes to the Chosen, they look like us, regular human beings. But when it comes to the Rejects, well, they look like some deformed characters. And so we see both sides fighting against each other. Now, here's the thing. You see, you have our X Factor team just teleported in the middle of the battle. And you have our heroes trying their best to just defend themselves against different opponents from both groups. But I want to shift our focus onto Archangel, because you have Archangel going out of his way to save Princess Sierra, who's part of the Chosen. And so when he saves her, she freaks out because the way he looks. He does not look normal. He looks like a reject. And so she's wondering if he belongs to that group and if he's trying to kill her, even though he just saved her. Now, when it comes to Archangel, he is taken out by another character of the Chosen, and that will be Rask. And Rask is going to use Archangel in some kind of arena. Now, when it comes to Iceman, it's going to be a tad bit different. And I'll explain why here later on in this video, but he's also taken hostage by the Chosen as well. Because of them, Iceman looks like a reject, a deformed person. And now they're going to use him in the next arena battle alongside with Archangel. But now I want to shift our focus over to Jean Grey, because just like Archangel and Iceman, Jean Grey is also taken away as a hostage, as a captive, but by the other group, the Rejects, because they were able to use their jammer abilities to jam her mind to knock her out. Now, here is something else I do want to mention. You see, around this time in X Factor Comics, Cyclops had a son, and that would be Christopher Summers. And so in this entire story arc, Christopher has been traveling alongside with Cyclops in X Factor. And so when they were teleported in the middle of the battle, so was Christopher, who was just crawling around, and you had Jean Grey trying to get to him, but unfortunately she was knocked out. Now, when it comes to Beast, he was actually able to join the Rejects because just like Archangel, he does look a tad bit different, not normal. And so he was able to easily fit in with the rest of the Rejects, except the battle does end as soon as a space god appears. Of course, they are talking about a celestial, and you have both sides just retreat easily. But I want to shift our focus back over to Iceman, who's no longer in his ice state because he was also hit by jammers, except with him, he had now lost his memories because of being hit by one of the jammers who had worked his mind. And so currently he's back in his regular form. Now he is found by one of the Chosens, and that would be Lev. Now when it comes to Lev, she's kind of like the Human Torch, being able to transform into a flame-like state and cross her entire body. But when she finds Iceman and realizes that he has a regular form, he's no longer classified to her as a reject, but instead as a dueler. And I'll talk more about that later on in this video. But she does help Iceman go back to the side of the Chosen as a way to get away from the space god, the Celestial. Now, when it comes to Christopher, he is found by one of the Chosen. And so you have this one person being able to actually grab Christopher and get him somewhere safe away from the space god. but now we have to shift our focus over to Cyclops because he's the last person I have not talked about. You see, after you had everybody retreat, after the Celestial had appeared, Cyclops was just woken up after being knocked out earlier in the battle. Except when he does wake up and looks up, the space god is about to step on him. And so we're kind of left to believe that Cyclops is going to die here. Now, don't worry, Cyclops is able to actually find a way to protect himself when it comes to being almost squished by the giant foot. You see, he was able to dig a hole in the ground that would allow him to go deeper in the ground, just deep enough where the actual Celestial's foot cannot squish him. So he'll survive, so we're good there. Now, when it comes to Beast, he was able to retreat with the other rejects back to their territory. Now, when it comes to Beast, he was able to meet up with one of the rejects, and that would be, and I'm going to mispronounce his name so bad, Zaharka. Now, when it comes to Zaharka, she's one of the great warriors of the rejects, but she also looks at Beast as a reject, but kind of wondering what tribe he actually came from. Now, when it comes to Beast, he does pretend that he had lost some of his memories. And the reason why he's doing this because one, he does not belong to any clan in the reject territory. But two, he hates the idea of actually explaining that him and the rest of the crew came from a different planet across the universe. Now, this gives Beast a chance to actually learn more about this world. When it comes to the Chosen, they believe that they were chosen to actually rule over the earth. But when it comes to the rejects, they should be getting rid of completely because they look deformed. They look different. They don't look normal. And so when it comes to Zaharka, she says she feels like this could most likely be the end of their world. And the reason why? The space god, the Celestial, is here to give them another test to see how far this world has come with these two different groups. But now these two groups are at war with one another, which could possibly mean the end of this world because they had failed the tests. Now, when it comes to Archangel, he is currently being held hostage by the Chosen. Now, when it comes to the Chosen, they're not listening to Archangel at all. He is saying, hey guys, listen, I'm not a reject. I'm not even from this earth at all. I'm from a different earth. And on top of that, I was not trying to kill your princess. I was trying to save your princess. But when it comes to Rask and also Sarah and a few other members of the Chosen, they're not listening in what he is saying. They don't believe him. Now, he's able to break free, but right after doing that, you have Rask being able to knock out Archangel all over again. Now, while all that was happening, when it comes to the Princess Sarah, she looked at Archangel as a very interesting character, magnificent. She wants to know more about him. And so she walks away to think more about Archangel. Now, while she's walking away, she is confronted by her robot. And this is where we learn a tad bit more about the Chosen and really the rejects as well. You see, when it comes to the Chosen, they no longer go down the usual route when it comes to having babies. Instead, they use science as a way to grow babies, to grow perfect humans, because almost everybody else looks at the princess as the perfect Chosen. She was made in a perfect image, and other children are going to be made just like her in that perfect image. Now, when it comes to Iceman, he's currently being tested as a dueler. You see, on this world, you have the Chosen, and the Chosen are people who are just regular looking people, but they also have abilities that don't transform their body appearance. Now, when it comes to the duelers, they are accepted in the Chosen territory, but at the same time, they're still looked at as hideous creature because they have two forms. Their first being a regular human form, and the second one being more of a hideous form. So for Iceman, he would be accepted because his first form, his human form. But once he does transform into his Iceman form, they're going to look at him as a hideous creature. The same thing for Lev as well. Now, when it comes to Iceman, just like Archangel, he's not allowed to touch Sierra. Again, the perfect princess, because if they do, they might ruin who she is. But on top of that, they're not as perfect as a Chosen, are definitely not perfect as Sierra. Now, when it comes to Cyclops, we do find out that yes, he is okay, but then he's confronted by a mysterious character. Now, this character does inform us that apparently he's the most powerful psychic on this planet, but he's having a hard time reading the mind of Scott Summers. Now, he does understand that Scott is most likely not a Chosen, but also not part of the Rejects as well. That he does believe that Scott and the rest of his crew are from another planet. But you do have this mysterious character take Cyclops away to somewhere else. And this is going to lead us into a third group that belongs into this big battle, this big Judgement War. Now, something else we do learn about the Chosen is that they heavily rely on science, and not just in the creation of different members of the Chosen community, but also what they take as nutrients for their body, different kinds of pills and other kinds of medication. Because when we do jump back over to Sierra, she continues to talk about the idea of how babies are created, how the old ways are gone. But here's the thing, the old ways should never be mentioned at all anymore, because now their main focus is to use science to create babies. And so when it comes to a robot, it does get very upset when it hears Sierra talking about the old method. But you have Sierra say, if you try to report me, I'll report you as a robot that needs to be repaired. And of course, the robot does freak out. Instead, it tries to please Sierra by giving her different kinds of nutrients. But then she is confronted by the warrior that had found Christopher earlier. And you have Christopher in his arms, and she's kind of wondering where in the world did this baby come from? But she does remember that Archangel told her, hey, he came here along with others and a baby. And so she believes that Christopher here is the baby that Archangel is talking about. Now, when it comes to the Great Warrior, he wants to report the baby. The idea that a scientist may have lost it. But you have Sierra say no, she'll take care of it, and goes on with her day. Actually, she does mind wipe him to make him forget about her and the baby. And then she goes on with her day. Now, I want to shift our focus back onto the ship just for a brief moment, because you have the ship just hanging out with the Celestial. Now, the Celestial does have a proper name. It has been around for a very long time in Marvel Comics, and I'm going to mispronounce the name, and his name is Gamion. Now, when it comes to Gamion, it wants the ship to remember its actual origin. Before the ship, it believed that it was created by Apocalypse. But here's the thing though, if Apocalypse had created the ship, then why would he have to control it? Why would he have to put in different kind of systems that would allow him to properly control it, to take over it? If he already created it, then it should be working for him perfectly fine. And so now the ship knows that Apocalypse was not its original creator, that most likely somebody else was, or even the Celestials. And so now the ship is trying to remember its proper origin. Now, when it comes to Cyclops, he is introduced to a new group of characters, and they are known as the Beginning Gangs. Now, when it comes to the Beginning Gangs, their main goal is to stay neutral, but really to kind of help out both the Chosen and the Rejects, to bring those two groups together as one again. And here's the reason why. Because of the space god, the Celestial, better known as Gamion. You see, when it comes to Gamion, he travels across the universe, but while doing that, he's going out of his way to test different planets across the universe to see if those planets are worthy enough to survive in the universe. When it comes to this world right here, they have been tested 4 times and passed all 4 times, but now they're on their 5th test. And most likely, they are going to fail because of the chosen and the rejects not working together. This time, the world will most likely fail and be destroyed. And so as we dive into the third chapter, we do pick up with Archangel in the arena, about to go up against someone known as Agram. Now, Agram is also a reject as well, but being forced to fight in the arena against Archangel to just survive. If you don't, most likely they are going to kill you off. Now, here's the thing. Archangel and Agram, they're both properties to different people of the chosen. For Archangel, he's technically property for Rask. So if Archangel wins, Rask is going to make a lot of money with all the different bets being made for this fight. Now, when it comes to Archangel, he does not want to battle. Matter of fact, he's all like, listen guys, I'm not going to do anything for you at all. And I'm not going to fight against this man. But really, he has no choice. Agram is trying to fight him to survive, but on top of that, both men are hit with golds. Now, these golds are filled with some kind of poison that bring up their aggression to force Archangel and also Agram to fight against each other. Now, when it comes to Archangel, at first, that kind of poison does work on him. He does fight back, but at the same time, he is trying his best to restrain himself from actually killing Agram off. But luckily, he is able to control himself. Now, when it comes to Archangel, he wants to leave, and he tries to leave, but he is stopped by the shield defenses that are placed around the arena to make sure that no prisoners are able to escape. Now, Iceman is there too at the arena watching the battle, but for Iceman, he gets very upset to see how the Chosen are actually treating Archangel and treating Agram, the rejects of the group. Now, when it comes to Iceman, he truly believes that he is a dueler. He does not remember who he is or where he came from. Matter of fact, he does not remember Archangel at all. And so for Iceman, it's all like, hey, I don't know who that guy is, but I don't like how they are treating him. And so he tries his best to talk up to the Chosen. Now, he is stopped by Lev, and she said, listen, even though we are duelers, and even though we are accepted in Chosen territory, we're still looked at as monsters because of our second form. If we try to go up against them, they might actually shut us down. Now, when it comes to Iceman, he believes that him and the rest of the duelers and their abilities can most likely defeat the Chosens very easily and take over their territory. But again, he's told to stay in his lane, to stay in his place. Now, when it comes to Princess Sarah, she's kind of showing us that she's beginning to become more worried for Archangel and also Iceman as well. Now, she's also worried about Jean Grey, but the problem is, though, she has no idea what exactly happened to Jean Grey. But we know she's currently being held as a captive by one of the tribes of the rejects. And matter of fact, we do get a quick glimpse of Jean Grey to kind of find out that she's still unconscious. She has not waken up after the first battle in this story arc, and she won't eat anything either because, hey, she's unconscious. And so now you have the rejects wondering, what are they going to do with Jean Grey here? But we do jump over to Zaharkar, where we do learn that Jean Grey is about to be used as a prisoner exchange. You see, when it comes to the rejects, they're going to hand over all their chosen prisoners over to the Chosen. When it comes to the Chosen, they're going to hand over all their reject prisoners to the rejects. Now, when it comes to Beast, he has no idea that Jean Grey is currently being held as a prisoner. And so when it comes to Zaharkar, she's kind of wondering, should she tell Beast about Jean Grey and that she's being held as a prisoner, but also being used as a part of a prisoner exchange? Now, the reason why she's kind of wondering if she should tell Beast, because again, Beast has not told her the complete truth of where he came from or who he is. And so for her, she's kind of wondering, is he actually a reject or possibly a spy for the Chosen? Now, when it comes to Beast, he is able to experience more with the rejects while hanging out with them. So, for example, childbirth. You see, we already know when it comes to the Chosen, they don't go down the natural route when it comes to having children. They use science. But when it comes to the rejects, well, they go down the natural route
But unfortunately, 1 out of 4 babies are going to survive. The other 3 are going to die. And that is a very high number when it comes to the rejects. And so for Beast, at first, he is able to see somebody give birth to their child. And honestly, everyone is excited. But that moment only lasts for like a few minutes because the child died just like that. And so Beast realized there's something wrong with their genetics. And so for Beast, he said, listen, I'm a scientist. I can find a way to fix all your guys' genetics that would allow y'all to have more children without the idea of worrying, will they survive or not right after childbirth. But you have Zarkar tell Beast, no, we are not like the Chosen. We are not going to use science. We're going to use what we know to help us survive. And that really shows another part being a difference between the Chosen and the rejects. Now, when it comes to Sierra, I want to shift our focus back on her. We currently see her trying her best to take care of baby Christopher, but in secret, because she knows if word gets out that she is currently taking care of a baby that was not created by the scientists, well, most likely they are going to kill Christopher off. Because here's the thing, the scientists only create perfect babies. If they look at Christopher and said, he is not perfect, he's dead. That's it. Now, here is something else I do want to mention. If they find out that Sarah is properly taking care of this baby, well, they're going to give her some kind of punishment because in their eyes, she was supposed to be the most perfect being of the Chosen when they had created her. And now if they see her doing this, they are going to begin to believe that she is not actually perfect at all and deserves some kind of punishment. And that is really huge. But we're also seeing Sarah wondering, why did the Chosen go away from the natural route when it comes to having babies? Because right now she is worried about Christopher's parents, Cyclops and Jean Grey. Now we jump over to Cyclops, who's also with Daikon. Now when it comes to Daikon, we haven't really talked much about him, but Daikon has an ability that's very similar to Richter and also Avalanche, being able to cause earthquakes and other kinds of stuff. But when it comes to Daikon, he does inform Cyclops that yes, they are going to fail the test. And the reason why, because the Chosen, the rejects, and also the beginning games, they are not really working properly together. Matter of fact, they have changed so much since the last test that they don't have the right to survive. The space god can say, you know what? You guys have fallen apart. You should be destroyed, and just snap his fingers and they'll be dead. Now you have Cyclops saying, what if you are able to get all 3 groups together to fight against this powerful being? What if when it comes time for him to say, you know what, you have failed the test, and he begins to actually blow up the world, if all 3 groups are able to work together to stop him, to get rid of him, but to save this world, it might be the only way to finally have peace between all 3 groups. Now, when it comes to Beast, while you have Beast still hanging out with the rejects, he overhears that what is currently happening with Archangel. And so after hearing about that, you have Beast decide that one, to tell the rest of the rejects that Archangel belongs to his supposed tribe. Now, Beast is still making sure they have no idea that he is from another world, that he's actually not part of this world, but also he's not a reject. He's known as a mutant. But when it comes to Beast, he does claim that Archangel belongs to his tribe, and now he has to go out of his way to save Archangel. And so now we're seeing Beast thinking about the idea of breaking into the main city of the Chosen to save his team member Archangel. But now I want to jump back over to Iceman, and here's the reason why. So when it comes to Iceman, he's hanging out with Lev, and Iceman still thinks that he is a dueler. That is really important, and let me explain why. So when it comes to Iceman, he's kind of like, you know what, it's great to be here and also be with you, but you have Rask walk in. And when Rask walks in, he begins to talk down to all duelers in the entire territory of the Chosen. Because again, duelers have 2 forms. They're their human form and what they call their monster form, where they change into a different form like Iceman does, into his ice form. And so when it comes to Rask, he calls all duelers half rejects. Now for Iceman, he says, you know what? That's not right, because what gives you the right to call us half rejects? Matter of fact, what gives you the right to say that you, the chosen, are the most perfect beings on this world? I bet if you and I had a battle right now, I can easily defeat you. Now for Rask, that's a joke, because there's no way a half reject or full reject would be able to take down a chosen. But you actually have Iceman being able to humble Rask, to show Rask you're not perfect as you believe you are, that you are somebody on my level. You need to learn how to use your powers better if you want to overcome different obstacles like me. Either way, you have Iceman leave, and Lev is able to get some money because she did take some bets on Iceman winning the battle. Now, as we dive into the next chapter, we do pick up with Beast, currently still hanging out with the rejects, but we now have Zaharkar telling us that we're getting closer and closer to the exchange, but she then tells us that she's going to tell Beast about Jean Grey, because when it comes to Jean Grey, nobody knows about her, not the rejects nor the chosen, but she will be used in that exchange. But is Zaharkar saying if she tells Beast, and Beast shows any kind of concern for Jean Grey, then she'll know in her mind that Beast is actually a spy for the chosen. And so with that, she'll go out of her way to get rid of him. Now, when it comes to Iceman, he's still hanging out with the chosen as a dueler, but we do learn a tad bit more about this society. You see, the older people are the ones who don't really like the duelers, but the younger ones are the ones who are becoming more accepting to the idea of having duelers around in their territory. Now, when it comes to Sarah, she's still trying her best to actually take care of baby Christopher, and she's trying her best to keep it a secret. But the problem is she's not watching her surroundings. And when I say her surroundings, I mean up in the sky, where a spy was able to realize that there's a possibility that Sarah is up to something. But now we jump over to Cyclops. Now, when it comes to Cyclops, he begins to learn what is happening with the other members of X Factor. Archangel and Iceman are with the Chosen, and Beast is with the Rejects. Now, he also learns about Jean Grey being with the Rejects, but as a prisoner. And of course, you have Cyclops just freak out and wanting to save Jean Grey first. But when it comes to him trying to leave, the beginning games tell Cyclops that they cannot really help him. And matter of fact, they're saying, hey, you should not get involved no matter if it is the woman you love. But for Cyclops, he's not going to listen to them. Instead, it's him saying, no, I have to save the woman I love with your help or without your help. And so he leaves to go save Jean Grey. Now, when it comes to Archangel, we do see that he's being put through some kind of training session, except before the training can actually begin, you did have Archangel try to attack Rask. Because remember, Rask technically owns Archangel in the eyes of the Chosen. Now, when it comes to Archangel, he's trying to show no matter what they do to him, he is still going to try his best to escape, but also try his best to stop Rask. Now, Rask is able to overcome the first few attempts that Archangel tries, but after a few, Archangel is able to find a way to actually cut the leg of Rask. Now, after doing that, Archangel is thrown into a cell. You didn't have Rask say, you need to understand that you are my property and you're going to learn to follow my orders. But at the same time, I have to make sure that you are ready for your next opponent. Now for Archangel, he's down with the idea of continuing to fight against people as long as those people are from the Chosen territory. And his next opponent is a dueler. But the problem is, he has no idea the dueler that he is about to face is Iceman. But now we have to jump back over to Beast. Now, when it comes to Beast, he sees Jean Grey being taken away for the exchange. And as soon as he sees her, he runs down there to save her life, to help her break free from her restraints. But then you have
all the rejects say arrest him because look at him. He lied to us. He's not one of us. He's one of them. He's a spy for the chosen. Look at him as he protects that girl right there, who is clearly a member of the chosen. But here's the thing though, guys. But here's the thing. You see, Jean Grey wakes up, and this is the first time that she has woken up since the first chapter. But when she does wake up, Jean Grey is not acting like she usually does. Now, guys, we have to remember, she absorbed the memories of Madeline Pryor before Madeline died, but also she absorbed the memories of the Phoenix when the Phoenix was pretending to be Jean Grey. And so, right now, her body is trying to, manage 3 different personas in her one single mind. And so out of nowhere, Beast realized that Jean Grey is no longer in control of her body. Instead, it's Madeline Pryor. Yes, you heard that right. Madeline Pryor. Now, getting back over to Cyclops, you have Cyclops and Daikon trying to head over to the main city for the Chosen. But they now ran into another problem. And that problem is, well, the Celestial had returned back to the planet, but now is blocking their path to actually reach the city. They have to go around him, and that might take them a while to actually do. And so you have Cyclops yell out into the open saying, Jean, don't worry, I'm coming for you. But Madeline Pryor hears that, and she's still not happy with Cyclops, all thanks to X-Men Inferno. Now, getting back over to Sarah is trying her best to take care of baby Christopher. But here comes the problem though, guys. Listen here. You see, while trying to take care of Christopher, well, then Rask appeared. Now, I have not really told you about this in this video so far, but when it comes to Rask wants to be in charge of all the Chosen next to Sarah. And so he has been trying to build some kind of alliance with her that would allow him to be in control of the rest of the Chosen people. But unfortunately, when it came to Sarah, she never accepted his alliance. But now with him being able to find out that she was hiding a baby, he said, listen, your only option to protect yourself is to build your alliance with me. And then all of this can go away. When it comes to Sarah though, she says no. Even though she does know there's going to be a whole lot of consequences, she says no. The best idea for me to do is not have an alliance with you. And so after he leaves, you didn't have Sarah say that she'll go out of her way to free Archangel before he has to fight against Iceman, his next opponent in the arena. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.